They once thought I had completely fallen. Just an invisible daughter, a struggling single mother, someone only worthy of eating their leftovers. But as I stand in this magnificent $3 million ballroom, calmly watching my perfect brother-in-law being led away in figure-8 handcuffs, his face completely pale without a single drop of blood, I realize a profoundly deep truth. Revenge is never loud. It is not a screaming argument in the middle of a crowded room. It is terrifyingly silent. It is a shadow silently creeping up, patiently waiting for the most perfect moment to completely swallow the arrogant. Everything started to fall apart on a pouring rainy Tuesday evening, during a seemingly harmless family dinner at one of the most luxurious restaurants in the downtown area. The air was filled with the smell of expensive wine and premium truffles. I sat quietly on the other side of the table, across from my biological younger sister Vivian. 2 years younger than me, but she had always been the golden child, the absolute precious gem in our parents' eyes. Our parents, Mr. Harold and Mrs. Mildred, were sitting imposingly at the head of the table like kings and queens. Mr. Harold, a 68-year-old former corporate director, always carried an unbearably condescending demeanor, leisurely swirling the glass of strong liquor in his hand as if he owned this entire world. Mrs. Mildred, 64 years old, was always madly obsessed with social status, continuously stroking the pearl necklace on her neck and ceaselessly judging the outfit of anyone who walked through that heavy oak door. My son Leo, an 8-year-old boy with big, round, curious brown eyes and a heart far too pure compared to this rotten family, was sitting obediently beside me, quietly drawing scribbles on the pure white tablecloth. Vivian waved her hand to call the waiter. She smiled smoothly, ordering a $185 Wagyu beef steak for herself, paired with a premium bottle of Pinot Noir wine. Then after that, without even bothering to glance at my son once, she casually ordered a cheap $16 Caesar salad for Leo. "Salad will help you get full faster than beef, darling," she said, blossoming a chillingly sweet smile that made the blood in my veins run completely cold. My parents burst out laughing. They laughed. Not laughing with me, but laughing at me. They considered me as the most pathetic failure, a cautionary tale they frequently whispered to their wealthy friends in their aristocratic country club. But little did they know, the woman sitting huddled in front of them in this old, frayed sweater was actually the CEO and founder of Crimson Shield Consulting, a corporation specializing in forensic auditing and crisis management, worth up to $50 million. I own a massive penthouse apartment in the city center with glass windows stretching from ceiling to floor, overlooking the entire dazzling skyline, and I usually drive a sleek, custom-designed Aston Martin. But on that night, I deliberately chose to drive my old, dilapidated Ford Focus. I was playing the role of a pathetic loser that they expected perfect down to the smallest detail. Brandon, Vivian's husband, is a 40-year-old man, tall, wearing an expensive tailored suit, but always exuding a nauseatingly fake aura. He works as a senior executive at Zenith Tech, a rising star in the tech industry, and always looks for every opportunity to flaunt his snobbish wealth. He barely bothered to look up from his latest generation iPhone as he muttered an insulting remark. "Well, at least if you are worrying about the cost, I am very willing to pay for Leo's meal. I know lately things have been really difficult for you, Loretta." I bit my inner lip so hard that I could taste the foul blood. I almost wanted to burst out laughing right then and there. This is the exact man who had blatantly embezzled $450,000 from Zenith Tech over the past 18 months. When the bill was finally brought over in a black leather booklet, that was the turning point of this entire stupid play. Brandon confidently pulled out his platinum credit card. The waiter returned just 2 minutes later, carrying an incredibly confused expression. The card was declined. Brandon flushed red, frantically rummaging to find another card. Declined again. He started to panic, his voice hissing with arrogance, loudly asserting that the restaurant system must have certainly encountered a very serious error. I calmly stepped into the act. Without saying a single word, I gently pushed my solid metal American Express Centurion card across the table. The waiter took it with eyes wide open in astonishment. It was a bill worth $3,200, plus an $800 tip. A massive amount of money to them, but to be honest, I had paid more than that for the private catering service at Leo's 8th birthday party last month. Brandon sweated profusely, completely humiliated in front of his wife's family, whom he always tried to impress. He forced a twisted smile. "I will transfer that amount of money to you tonight, I swear," he stammered. I only smiled in response. "Take your time, Brandon. Take all the time that you need." Little did he know, this was merely the beginning of a horrifying dead end for him. Returning to the strictly secured office of Crimson Shield Consulting, my trusted assistant, Iris, was patiently waiting. She is 33 years old, sharp, incredibly resourceful, and has been absolutely loyal to me over the past 5 years. She handed me a thick black file folder. "Operation Eclipse is ready for the final phase, Loretta," she said, her eyes lighting up with anticipation. We had spent many exhausting months tracking every single digital footprint that Brandon thought he had wiped clean. We had gathered undeniable evidence. Brandon is a man suffering from a severe delusion of power. He truly believes that he is the smartest person in the world. He thought that setting up 3 shady shell companies, Horizon Ventures LLC in Delaware, Summit Insights LLC in Nevada, and Apex Solutions LLC also in Nevada, was a stroke of criminal genius. He had siphoned money from Zenith Tech through extremely complex fraudulent invoices and untraceable bank transfers. But my plan reached much further than just Brandon. My parents also had their own financial delusions. Many years ago, Harold and Mildred had secretly signed over their entire large suburban house to Vivian through a quitclaim deed. They thought they were incredibly smart to evade a massive property tax. But their very arrogance blinded them to the legal risks. That real estate property had an outstanding tax lien amounting up to $180,000. Harold, with his infinite wisdom, had simply stopped paying property taxes 3 years ago, assuming that he was an untouchable person. The city government had imposed a massive property lien last year. Through Iris digging deep into the city's archives, I had discovered this debt. 2 weeks prior to the dinner at the restaurant, I had quietly purchased that exact tax lien right from the city for the price of $195,000 through a proxy corporation. The legal clock had started counting down. If Vivian did not fully pay off that massive debt within 90 days, that beautiful family home, the place where they had raised her like a princess and treated me like a ghost, would entirely legally belong to me. One day before the highly anticipated Quantum Dynamics Gala, which also coincidentally happened to be my father's lavish birthday, my phone rang. It was Mildred. "Loretta, listen here, I need you to come to the house early tomorrow to help clean up the patio," she ordered, her tone razor-sharp and bossy. Coming as a hired worker, not as a guest of the family, I agreed to her request, even though my heartbeat was pounding, knowing exactly what I was about to do. The next afternoon, I arrived at the massive colonial-style house wearing a faded light blue uniform from a catering job I had done a full decade ago. The sprawling front yard still looked exactly the same as before. The huge, absolutely beautiful maple tree that Harold had affectionately planted on the occasion of Vivian's 10th birthday still stood tall right there. He had never planted a single seed for me. "Set up the outdoor bar, and don't break the crystal," she yelled. I kept my face down and continued working. Leo was chased out to the backyard to play with Vivian's spoiled 10-year-old twin sons, Max and Jake. Those children always acted extremely cruel towards him. I looked out the kitchen window and saw Max and Jake mercilessly tearing out the pages of Leo's favorite sketchbook. They laughed maniacally, throwing his drawings into the mud, mocking him as the little boy desperately tried to snatch them back, tears streaming down his small face. I knelt down when Leo ran into the house, gently wiping away his mud-smeared tears. I hugged him tightly and whispered into his ear, "Just be brave for a little bit longer, my sweet boy. I promise you tomorrow everything will completely change." Around 4 in the afternoon, when the jazz band started playing and all the guests were completely drawn to the open bar, I slipped into Harold's private study room without anyone noticing. Tax returns, hidden bank statements, and the finalized paperwork related to the quitclaim deed. This was the final cache of ammunition. Through the flimsy wall, I heard Brandon pacing back and forth out in the hallway. "Find out their names immediately," he screamed in panic. I smiled in the darkness. He was finally getting closer to the horrifying truth, but he was far too late. The following evening was Zenith Tech's grandiose corporate gala. I spent the entire afternoon at an exclusive, high-end salon in the city center. Iris was right by my side, coordinating all logistics and ensuring every single tiny detail was flawlessly perfect. I stepped into a custom-tailored dark emerald Oscar de la Renta gown worth $300,000. On my neck was a spectacular 30-carat diamond necklace, sparkling like a blazing fire. Tonight are you going to look like a princess? The little boy softly asked. No, my sweet little baby. Tonight, Mommy is a queen. When the Maybach driven by a private chauffeur pulled up to the grandiose entrance of the gala, the red carpet was blindingly bright. Photographers shouted, camera flashes blinked continuously, and onlookers whispered incessantly. I stepped out of the car, the emerald silk ribbon fluttering brilliantly behind me. I felt like an unstoppable force of nature. Leo proudly walked beside me, his tiny hand gripping my hand tightly. Inside the gigantic ballroom illuminated by magnificent chandeliers, I immediately recognized my family. Vivian and Brandon were standing near the VIP table area, clinking expensive champagne glasses, completely unaware of the disaster-level hurricane that was about to make landfall. I locked my eyes right onto Brandon. I got to witness firsthand the exact moment his arrogant smile completely dissolved. His eyes widened in absolute terror as the cruel truth violently struck his mind. Behind me, gigantic digital screens lit up with undeniable evidence. Bank transfer receipts accurate down to the exact digit. $45,000 for an elite country club membership. This is a blatant setup, he screamed, his voice shattering wildly. But all the evidence was too clear and absolute. We had already handed over the entire case file to federal prosecutors. When they dragged him out the main doors, flashing red and blue lights illuminated the entire grand hall. They handcuffed him right on the marble floor. She clawed at the security guards, sobbing and screaming that her family was being completely destroyed. I signaled for Vivian and my parents to follow me into a separate VIP area, tucked away at the back of the hall. Her bank accounts had been officially frozen by the federal government, completely locked down due to direct involvement in the large-scale embezzlement investigation. We can still sell it, she cried desperately. That is precisely the deed for the tax lien. If you fail, I will immediately confiscate that entire property, I said in a gentle but freezing voice. She collapsed into the chair, trembling violently, finally realizing she was completely responsible for a massive debt that she could never pay off in this entire lifetime. Exactly like the way you ordered food for my son. The complete and utter collapse on her face was worth every single second of silence that I had to endure. The anonymous donor who paid off that entire massive hospital bill was exactly me. From this moment forward, we are absolutely nothing to each other anymore. Mr. Thompson gently asked if we could speak privately in his office upstairs. Loretta, there is a truth that I have had to bury for over 3 decades, he began, his hands slightly trembling. Her name was Mildred. When she discovered she was pregnant, she panicked, immediately quit her job, and hastily married Harold to cover up this monumental scandal. I obtained an incredibly discreet DNA sample by using the wine glass you left behind at a company luncheon. The results show the probability of biological paternity is up to 99.7%. I sat there in complete shock, choking up to the point of being unable to breathe. Everything suddenly became extremely perfect, in a terrifying way. Harold always clearly knew that I entirely did not carry his biological blood. I want to be able to become a part of your life, if you could allow me to. 2 weeks later, all the storms had finally settled down. I am standing in my penthouse apartment, casting my eyes down at the dazzlingly shimmering city lights. Leo is sitting on the Persian rug, happily drawing a gigantic, vibrantly colored castle. Mommy, why were they always so cruel to us like that? The little boy innocently asked. They had completely forgotten kindness and they had forgotten love. I stood up straight, taking a very deep breath of the silent air. He is currently facing federal fraud charges, carrying a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 to 15 years in a maximum security prison. She is currently having to work a grueling retail job, with a minimum wage at a local department store just to make a living day by day and raise her children. Max and Jake were immediately expelled from the prestigious private academy and are currently having to attend a local public school. They are currently having to rent a tiny, cramped apartment from a property management company, a company that I secretly own. They are finally having to learn the lesson of how terrifying it is to live without the gold-plated safety net that they had always taken for granted throughout their pathetic lives. Disclaimer: this video is created for the sole purpose of entertainment. All situations, characters, and stories in this video are fictional and are built entirely using artificial intelligence technology. We hope you have a relaxing time